So let's fast forward a little bit here. So this whole thing, the protective order, you get kicked out of your house in 2016. 2 days after Mother's Day, you're being told, after being beaten up, strangled, having all of your money taken away, you get 5 hours basically to move out of your house. And you had family and friends to move in with?
No,
okay.
I lived in a motel almost right across the street from the courthouse in Collin County. I lived at the Value Place is where I lived at. Very shady people. My work found out through other co-workers and felt very bad because it's not a very safe place to be at. And I had no money except for the credit cards I had left to rent the place. You rent it either by the day or by the week or by the hour. Yes. So I was getting solicited over the phone by men that would run into me in the hall and they find out my room number. So my coworkers told one of my other coworkers, and they all gathered up money to rent me an actual hotel until I could find a place to live.
Yeah.
So the battered women's shelters were all full. They couldn't get me in. So I was just living on credit cards.
Yeah, I've heard. I was asked to meet somebody at one of the battered women's shelter, and we weren't able to arrange that, but. I understand it's really bad in instances like what you're talking about here. So you somehow survived that period of time. Did you go into any type of depression, or were you just like on top of the world and people would say, come on, chin up,
No, I cried every night. I would come to my motel room and have a moment and break down. I would, as soon as I got through the door, I would, my legs would give out. I would come home with my briefcase, roll it in, and as soon as I hit the threshold of the door, my legs would give out and I would fall to the floor. I didn't see how everything would turn out, but I still have faith in God. I have faith in God. So I would lay there for a while, cry, and then pick myself right back up.
Right.
And I would talk. Most of my family lives in California, so I would talk to them on the phone. At this stage, I did not feel comfortable in calling my mother because she would not have an understanding on why I never left my ex-husband. She knew about the abuse, but I would never do anything about it. So she took a stance of until she knew I was done with him, she would not help me. So I was pretty much on my own. And friends, they would help me financially by giving me food money. But they could not have me stay at their place because they were afraid of my ex-husband causing issues.
So during that time, did you see your kids frequently, or?
I did not see my kids for 2.5 months because the way that they negotiated between the two attorneys, my attorneys and my ex-husband's attorneys, is there's a game that goes into place. Somehow, attorneys nowadays puts one parent under supervised visitation, and they agree upon it. I don't know how that comes about. I was never violent. I never was a threat to my children. But they came up with this strategy of putting me under supervised visitation. It was never court ordered by the judge. It's something that the attorneys negotiated. And because of that, they can take as much time on paperwork, on trying to come to the agreement of the language of the temporary orders. So I had no temporary orders in place. I could not see the children. For 2.5 months I did not see the children. I still did not have temporary orders in place until December, but because I kept pushing my attorney that I've paid out all this money, I'm court ordered to pay my ex-husband half the mortgage, spousal maintenance, child support.
Wait a minute here. You have to pay him.
Yes, I was court ordered to pay him $4,950 a month during litigation. It was $50 shy. $5,000. He makes over 6 figures. He works at a big conglomerate. Yeah, one of the biggest companies in the United States.
So you were probably going in debt every month just paying him?
I would be in tears because divorce alone is hard and painful. Financial stress is something on a whole another level.
Right.
So I had no time to wallow in my sorrow. I would cry, yes, every day. I would cry for at least 3, 4, 5 hours. But I had to find a way to be able to see my kids. And in order not to be locked up by the judge because of enforcement regulations, because of what I was court ordered to pay, I had to find a way to come up with the money. And of course, I just had to do everything. I wouldn't eat. I dropped down to 115 pounds because I had no money for food. The women's shelter would provide me the food that they could. I would go to the food pantries. I was well known at the food pantries, even though I was making over 6 figures. All my money went to the ex, so I had no choice but to find other means. And even during this time, my ex-husband was posting how he defeated me in court publicly, and that he put his ex-wife, or his wife at the time, he said, he titled one of his blog posts, put wife on air mattress, which is very true. All I had was an air mattress that I was sleeping on, had no food, barely had any clothes, shoes, only what I could wear to work. And he's bragging about it, and even with that evidence, it never got before the judge to see because nobody wants to present it.
Right.
They want to reserve everything for final trial, which ended up 2 years later.
So tell me about I'm going to skip a little bit of time here, but during the next year and a half, then, did you see your kids frequently, regularly, infrequently? What was it?
It was never consistent. I was granted what I had with. And who only turned it around is when finally my first attorney fired me because of lack of payment. I had to go to another law firm, and that law firm actually helped me to get some visitation. What they finally were able to arrange is that I would get alternating Saturdays and Sundays, and I would be able to have the kids. It was extended. Instead of 2 hours, I would be able to have the kids from anywhere from 5 to 6 hours on just one weekend day. And so I had to live with that for 8 months, something like that.
Okay. So you come down to the actual divorce hearing then. What gets decided?
Well, we had a jury trial scheduled, and a week before jury trial, the judge forced us to go and settle because she really didn't want to have the jury trial the following week. So everybody went into rooms, the amicus, my attorneys and me, and my ex-husband and his attorneys in another room. And I was threatened by the amicus that if I did not go her way in settling it that day, that she would testify the following week, providing me less than what she was offering now. If I settled now, she would give me X amount of days with the expanded standard order of possession. I was trying to fight for at least 50-50, but she said that if I didn't go her way, she would make sure that I would get standard order of possession or lesser.
This was an amicus attorney threatening you.
She cursed at me, used the F word, got in my face, inches from my face, and told me if I didn't fucking take the deal, that she says, I'll tell you what my recommendations will be right now.
Wow, do you want to name her name?
Yes, it's Julie Lucio.
Julie Lucio, okay.
Yep.
So
And she was best friends with my ex-husband's attorney that I found out. They would travel together. They traveled internationally during our litigation.
Wow.
They took vacation together. Yes.
So the amicus...
They flaunted that even at mediation.
Yeah. So that's
Their
very...
Louis Vuitton bags.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've heard about this
Where
before.
they bought it, yeah, in Paris together. Yes.
So let me go a little bit further then. Were any of these attorneys good friends of the judge?
Yes. The amicus was college roommates with the judge.
Okay, let's mention her name. The judge is Piper McCraw.
Piper McCraw and Julie Lucio.
And Julie Lucio.
Yes.
So they were best friends in college, and therefore, basically, if she goes up to Judge Piper, is it McCraw or McCraw?
McCraw.
McCraw.
With
okay.
a C.
I got it. I wasn't sure. Okay. So if she goes up to Judge Piper McCraw, the buddy, friend, you're my old good roommate, probably would have impacted what the judge would do.
Or they would be on the outs because Julie Lucio and Judge McCraw were on the outs on one of my hearings that Julie Lucio was going to actually request that during that time that I only had no overnights, she was going to actually recommend ESPO, the Expanded Standard Order of Possession. but she did not come to court. And my attorney at the time, which was Michael Wysocki, very expensive, another Dallas expensive attorney.
How much, when you say expensive, how much?
Well, he was $400 an hour.
Oh,
but
well, that's half price.
No. But when attorneys come, they come with their associate attorney, which
That's
my
true.
associate attorney was $300, and then my paralegal was about $280 an
Yeah.
hour. I know all these rates. You
Yeah.
get to know what the buildings are.
Yeah.
But
So almost $1,000 an hour.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why people can't believe every time you have a court hearing, it's at least $6,000.
Yeah. And by the way, you had that one court hearing that got canceled,
Yes, and I still get charged.
and you still got charged. Yeah. You
Well, I got canceled twice, and they tried to cancel it the third time, and I was
Yeah.
like, I can't pay for this.
Yeah. So this is another type
15
of
grand.
this is pretty bad that when these things happen. I've had a friend that he was actually living in Rockwall, Texas, and somehow I think it was the ex-wife, got an order from somebody in Dallas. They took away his daughter, and he's in Florida now. He has to fly back to Rockwall for hearings, and this was, I believe it's Judge Nowak or Robert, I don't remember, but another one of these judges, he flew from Florida to Rockwall for a trial when his ex-wife is now living with the daughter up in Buffalo, New York. He has to fly in here, and the judge was sick twice. And then I did go back when he came back in January, I think it was, and the opposing attorney said, Your Honor, he has run out of time. So the judge was sick, or for whatever reason did not show up twice, so the clock ran out, and the judge says, there's nothing I can do. There's got to be an exception for that. When the judge is at fault here, the judge is the one that caused this. And now he says, well, I can't do anything about it because by statute of limitations, this is done. It's crooked as can be.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, to get back to what we were just talking about.
Well, even with the time limitations, Collin County has that 20-minute time clock. So all you have is 20 minutes to present your case.
Yeah. And by the way, I would like you to give me the complete biography of your life in 5 minutes starting now. Yeah, you've got to be very selective, and you can't do it. You can't. I think that when you're talking about tearing apart families.
Well, I was married to my ex for over 20 years, so trying to explain that and
1 minute a year.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah. No, I know. I hear what you're saying because we want to keep the courts efficient. We want to run them smoothly like a well-oiled machine. But the problem is justice does not work that way. And in too many instances, it becomes injustice.
Well, the last major court hearing that I had that was claiming that I abused, it was in November. It claimed that I was trying to murder my daughter in front of the Burger King parking lot. That the McKinney, I'm talking about 8 squad SUVs showed up and surrounded me and actually told me to get on the ground. My ex-husband called the police while we were at Burger King and said that I was assaulting my daughter and I had a knife. And that was on November 2nd. And so...
Of last year?
Yes, in 2019. I
wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Yes. And we were out in the parking lot and I was forced to the ground by one of the police officers. The second to the last police officer that showed up on the call, the 911 call, was a police officer that had responded several times to my apartment because my ex would claim that I was abusing the kids. And so he knew the drill. He explained to the first police officer that I was the safe one to please let me off the ground. But this police officer, he didn't unholster his weapon, but he did, flip the tie, whatever that snap thing is, and he told me, and he was forcing me to the ground verbally. And when I just squatted to the ground, he says, no, I need your butt to be on the ground. So I had no choice. And everybody's out there with their camera phones and recording it, as well as my 3 kids were out there.
And of course your ex-husband had something happen to him because he filed a false police report, is that right?
No, what he ended up doing was when he showed up on site, he said he wanted me arrested. The police wouldn't do it. And the police officer, the second to the last police officer, was Officer Hastings.
Yeah.
He's testified in court before for me. He's married, very Christian, church-going man. He claimed in front of all the police officers to Officer Hastings that I was having an affair with Officer Hastings, which Officer Hastings did not appreciate. So anybody that was supportive of me, he claims that I'm having an affair with. And quickest way to get on the wrong side of the McKinney Police Department, I'll tell you that, after that day.
Yeah.
So, well, the first officer that forced me to the ground came to speak on my behalf in court,
Yeah.
as well as Officer Hastings. But that day, because my ex-husband on the stand took up all the time of our 20 minutes, I had 16 seconds to defend myself.
Yeah.
That was after the counselor, or the children's counselor spoke. My ex-husband took majority of his, on cross-examination, and so I had 16 seconds, and the judge reversed her decision and granted me the kids back.
Yeah. So, when I went through a trial, which I could not believe this stuff was even happening, when it was my turn to testify, we were out of time.
Yes. Most of the time.
And the thing was that I found was this: if you throw out an accusation, it takes you 10 seconds to throw out an accusation, and 1 minute you can throw out a number of accusations. You can't respond to those accusations in 1 minute. You have to respond to each accusation, and it takes you time. So the way that you get the other person to use up all their time is to throw all of these things out, and then they never get to testify on their behalf. Fortunately, I had a judge that decided to allow me to testify, because my wife had testified prior to before I'd got up there, and had it not been for her testifying, I'm sure, based on all of the lies and the perjury and the dramatics, the theatrics and everything else, it was a slam dunk case. And the fact that I am a guy makes it more likely it's going to go that way. Well, it was interesting, because at the end of the day then, the judge said, I wanted to write this order twice, but now I have to look at the evidence. So now she's going to look at the evidence. We came back in the following week, and then, it continued. And at the time when it was time for the judge to make a decision, my attorney wanted to make closing arguments. The judge said that won't be necessary. Now my attorney was upset, but I thought this has got to be good, because if she's going to deny my attorney the ability to make the closing arguments, there will be some type of appeal or whatever. And the judge just, innocent. None of this stuff ever happened. But nevertheless, the problem was, from my perspective, is I have now been accused of this. I've had my name dragged through the mud.
Yes.
And
Very true.
to this day, people start to say some of these things. You want to read the court transcript? It never happened.
Yes.
Well, it had to have happened. Some of it had. It never happened.
Yes.
It never happened. But the problem is that when you lie to a judge and the judge refuses to enforce perjury, when the judge knows it's perjury,
Yes.
it deprives you of justice, and you have to live with it.
Oh, yes.